I guess we kind of have to get round to the man who I don't want to raise too much attention for, because as we'll talk about in a moment, there's a lot of lovely speculation around transfers. But Emi Buendia, again, it was almost like so much eyes were on him, and he goes and does something like score an absolute wonder goal. Um, how fantastic was he? He was amazing, wasn't he?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, words can't really describe him in many ways. I think usually with a player, certainly at this level, like there's a weakness to their game. There's a I said before this season that there's a reason why Emi Buendia is in a Norwich City shirt when he got sent off, when he throws his arms up in the air. I think we're getting to that point now where I can't explain how Emi Buendia is still in the Norwich City shirt, and that is worrying. That is worrying because it is January. But how can we really, like, I pray we keep him, but when he's putting in performances like that, right? So let's just 10 ground duels, 6 successful dribbles, 4 accurate long balls, 3 key passes, 3 tackles, 2 aerial duels, 1 clearance, 1 tackle, and 1 gloriously taken goal. I mean, when a player is putting in an all-round performance like that, when not only is he so good at your attacking and offensive output, but is contributing so much defensively, it's like, how do you even put a price on a player like that? And you're right, there's a lot of transfer speculations sort of circulating, which we'll touch on in a moment. But I suppose in terms of that performance, whether it was because there was an Arsenal scout in, watching in some capacity, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to think of a more complete player to put on the Norwich City shirt in my lifetime as a fan. Um, I've always been adamant that Maddison was the one who was just head and shoulders above everyone. And you're looking at Buendia and what he's doing, impacting the whole 90 minutes of a game. And for me, yeah, he's the one, isn't he? He's a diamond. Like I say, he's indescribable in many ways.
I think I always used to look at Buendia and Madison as a kind of contribution and be like, look, well, Buendia's giving you the assist, the chance creation, but Madison's giving you that goal contribution. And I feel like he always held that over him. And don't get me wrong, I still don't think Buendia is the goal scorer that James Madison was. I don't think I'll see a kind of number 10 to that level of quality where they can bend one in from 30 yards so consistently. But he is now adding those goals to his games. What is it? 6 goals and 7 assists in his last 16 appearances. It's a fantastic goal contribution. And all you got to do is look at the finish. I mean, he didn't once look at the keeper at all. He just watched the ball come across and he just knew where it was. He knew where it was going. And the fact that you've got a player like that, which can, I mean, it kind of reminded me a way of the Bristol City goal. He can just create a goal out of nothing. Norwich typically before last season, with this season, we've kind of changed the way we play. We'd never think of lumping a ball, over the top of the defenders to a 5'6", 5'7" winger. But it almost is like it's proven a track record of kind of guaranteeing you a great opportunity. And if it falls to Buendia, most of the time a goal. And I think, like you say, it's getting to that point now where I think Webber will be licking his lips at the thought of, look, and I guess we kind of better talk about it. There is going to be some significant offers on the table, which I think will be very, very appealing to Norwich. And I think it's a really tough one because as a fan, you've got to think, look, I want to go back up to the Premier League for the financial aspect. Even if you say, look, you don't want to go up to the Premier League, I think it's silly because the money which that could do for this club, even if we go back down in a year's time, could keep us going and keep us really in that kind of that I guess being relevant in that top 20, in that top 26 that kind of Webber's talked about wanting to be in. But at the same time, you've got, I mean, I get it. And I know it's so much rumours and you hear so much with these Arsenal fans on Twitter because they're probably the worst club to listen to right now on Twitter. But, the Independent reporting today that there could be a chance for us to get someone like Reece Nelson and cash for Emi Buendia. And the thought of someone like a Reece Nelson and 15 to 20 million for Buendia, I mean, you'd be absolutely insane not to say yes to that and snap their hand off. When you only outlaid about 1.5 to 2 million for Emi Buendia, you've got to be smart here and kind of capitalize on him while his price is high. Because if he now goes and has a horrific injury or plays awful until the summer, you've lost that maybe 40 million that you could have got for a player. And now you're only looking at 15 to 20 million, and I think as much as it's hard to kind of see that with your Norwich tinted glasses, I think that is a very valid point that needs to be raised, is that can we get a replacement in which can help us get up and also capitalize on the value of him? I don't know how you think about that, Bill, but I guess that's kind of how I'm trying to approach it right now.
Yeah, I mean, the transfer speculation is interesting because you're never entirely sure what to believe. There seems to be a lot of substance to these Buendia to Arsenal rumours, and I don't think it's just a sort of flash in the pan. It does appear to be something that, you know, there is a reason for these rumours. By the sounds of it, they're not at advanced stages, and it is just sort of preliminary talks at the moment. But if this package of Reece Nelson or Chris Willock joining, I mean, personally, I think me and you are both in the same boat that we prefer Reece Nelson because we need more of that type of player. But like, if we get a fee for Buendia and Reece Nelson, I wouldn't be too disappointed. And it's probably hard for Norwich fans listening to accept that. And I completely understand if you really just wanted Buendia because he's just invaluable. But the potential Reece Nelson has is insane. And I don't look. Is he going to come in and replace Buendia? No, but there is, especially with how valuable English players will be post Brexit, that somebody like Reece Nelson just could shoot up and has the potential to exceed Buendia's value, I suppose. But
absolutely,
it's hard to it'd be hard to step in Buendia's way because, like I say, I do think we're at that point now where there's not really an argument to keep Buendia. I suppose that you could forward because he is just performing so well that Buendia shouldn't be playing in the Championship. There's just no debate about that at all. So to try and keep him here might be a tough ask. But look, if we keep him here, we get promoted. There's no debate about that. Maybe there's some debate if we sell him, what happens? I don't know. What I mean, the thing I'll say is historically under Stuart Webber, when we've sold a top player, we've never descended, we've never regressed, we've always benefited from that. Which is why I'd have faith that in some way, whilst, okay, you might not be able to see the evidence of the benefits of Buendia's sale on the pitch, I can almost guarantee you behind the scenes it will make such a difference and it will just strengthen us so much. And that it's tough because as a fan, you just want to see the best players on the pitch, you want to see your team winning. But there is I suppose, a thought process behind these types of transfers. And it sounds like Norwich value Buendia at 40 million, which for me would be a fair price because I think he is that good. I mean, we've spoken about maybe 30 million being such a large sum of money. I think the way he's playing now, 40 million for me and break that and smash that sort of Championship record fee,
I think this huge thing is not only his value, but his value to us and his value to us in the situation we're in. You know, I completely agree with the thought process right now of a lot of Norwich fans of, look, if promotion's worth 200 million, he's worth 200 million because he's going to be the key. And although I agree with that, isn't it always is black and white, is, look, we know we're going to get promoted very likely with him in the team. There is an element of personal growth, you know, from him. This could be the only chance that he gets to go up to the Premier League to a top 6 team like Arsenal. And I feel like you tend to see it a lot in players that come across, you know, South American foreign players, that they kind of, their only views of the Premier League are the big teams. And, you know, I'm sure when Buendia was growing up, he was probably watching the Thierry Henrys, etc., and the Invincible teams. And Arsenal was probably a very big pull to something like that, even though they're not really in modern day, they're probably not the best team to go to right now. So I think you've also got to remember that kind of he'll probably have his own goals. And as much as I'd love to sit here and say, look at what we've given you, you're under contract till 2023, 24. If he stays till the summer and we go up, we'll probably then go, how about staying this season? And then it's that kind of rolling on. So, you know, I trust Webber. I think he'll make the right decision. I don't think Buendia will put his parts on because I think if he really wanted to do that, he would have done that and forced to move out before the season started. I do think he wants to be here and he's happy because he's playing well, the team's doing well. And I don't think any player will want to turn that down unless they feel like the opportunity is really going to benefit them. However, the thought of getting that money, which could buy a player like Ollie Skip in the summer, and getting Reece Nelson as well, that's got to be something you've got to really look at and kind of, and I guess that's what, you know, Webber will be doing. I'm sure he'll have a very busy window, but I guess
I think the thing as well with that, right? Just to quickly mention, like, even if Buendia does stay after January and we do retain his services, that even if we do get promoted, there's still no guarantee that we'll be able to hold on to him because he is that good. Like, usually when you get promoted, you're then able to hold your best players because you've got the lure of the Premier League. I think he's that good that any club
he could go European.
Yeah, and like you say, if you're looking at a 40 million package, however that comes, if that's with Reece Nelson or not, I think Norwich probably will be tempted to accept that, as hard as it will be to do, because he is just such a wonderful talent.
I guess it's also worth mentioning in the week, reported kind of out of the blue and to a club which didn't necessarily make a lot of sense at the start, was Max Aarons to United. Now, because this was about a week ago, we've kind of had a little bit of time to discuss this. It's not out of the way that we see a massive club linked with Max Aarons. We pretty much accepted that he'd be moving to Barcelona in the summer, and I think, to be fair to him, he's done more than enough for us to stay as long as he has. I guess my kind of thoughts on this is, I think a deal for Max Aarons isn't a bad deal for the club, because I think with as much as Sam Byram is probably a player that I'll never see play for the club again because he always seems to be injured, but Barley Mumba has shown absolutely fantastic signs of progress, and I also think, no disrespect to a right back position, but I feel like a right back position with the way we kind of recruit is probably a bit easier to replace than a winger, say, for example, in the attacking sense. And that's not to discredit Max Aarons at all. He's a fantastic footballer, and crucial to how we play. But if you're looking at like 20, 25, 30 million for a Max Aarons to a Man United, I mean, you've got to take that, haven't you?
I think Max Aarons is an easier player to replace in that sense, because it's just generally easier to replace a fullback than it is somebody who's contributing to the sort of chance creation stats like Buendia is. But and like you say, we do have players in Barley Mumba and Sam Byram who have the potential to sort of fill the shoes of Max Aarons, certainly in a short term sense. If we can get them fit and playing, but a package of sort of 20 to 25 million is a real sizable fee at this level. And that, as good as Max Aarons is, I do think he's replaceable, and there'd be a lot of demands on somebody like Byram and Mumba. And I think if there are sort of rumours that was the incentive that kept Max Aarons here, like stay here until January and then sort of see where we are, because they do expect those two players to sort of be more heavily involved the second half of the season. But it does seem a weird transfer link. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Brandon Williams or Diogo Dalot would be sort of exchanged in a similar way to the Arsenal scenario.
Yeah.
Because somebody like Brandon Williams would be an incredible signing for us. I mean, if we sell Max Aarons and Emi Buendia and replace them with Reece Nelson and Brandon Williams, I'm 100% all right with that. Because I think those two are rated really highly and really good, real good additions to us. But it does sound a little bit like sort of FIFA career mode, doesn't it? In many ways, these sort of speculative player swaps, and how much substance there are to these rumours, I'm not entirely sure.
I think it's really interesting. The only thing that made me really believe it was the fact that it was Fabrizio Romano that was the person on the other end of it, because I really have belief that what he says and what he tweets, there's a level of expectation of like, look, this is, put it this way, there is talks. There has to be talks for someone like Fabrizio Romano to get wind and be able to publicly say that this is a thing that's going on. I think on paper it looks weird for United because they've already got Wan-Bissaka they spent big money on last summer, and I guess it's been okay. But I think you kind of mentioned it when we first saw it, that with Alex Tellers coming on the left-hand side, it's kind of pushed Luke Shaw on to be a better player, and maybe they're hoping the same for Wan-Bissaka. But I guess to kind of look at it from a Norwich side of it, like you say, if we can get, I guess, what I'd classify as a modern day COVID deal, in terms of where a club financially really can't afford to outlay the same money they can because they're losing so much revenue in gate money. And I think as a football club, they're losing money nowadays as opposed to what they would previously in normal times. I think you're going to see a lot of either loans, like a Max Aaron loan deal with a view to a permanent guaranteed, like we saw with Barcelona in the summer, or we'll be looking at a player swap and some kind of cash incentive, whether that be over an add-on period or as an upfront period. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Brandon Williams 15 million, for example, or 10 million rising to 20 and Brandon Williams, or some kind of structured deal. Just because I feel like that's really how clubs are going to get through spending money in this January transfer window, without going absolutely ludicrous. I don't know if you kind of agree with that, but it seems like that's how the market will be.
No, I do. And I think, look, there's probably going to be Norwich fans listening to this that are, like I say, frustrated at maybe how accepting we are of losing players. But the reality is we're a self-sufficient club. And you can say we'll get 100 million if we get promoted. Yeah, we will, but we don't. You don't get promoted, and then the next day Stuart Webber's handed a 150 million pound check. That's the problem we had in the Premier League season when we went up, is that we weren't willing to risk the future of the club, because you don't just get 150 million. Like, that's not what happens. You get it over, we're still getting parachute payments and stuff. And with COVID, we have been massively affected by it. And we've dealt with it well, but that's only been because it's been supplemented by big player transfers. And somebody like Max Aarons, they probably will be looking at going, okay, we feel like we can replace him. And I think what me and you are just trying to do is look at it from if these two players do go, how do Norwich benefit it from the most? And because this is the way that we're run, and we don't have investors, and we don't have an owner who's going to pump millions into us. We have an owner who cares about our club and is the genuine fan. And I think I'm willing to accept that if it means you lose a player every now and then.